People will know RACI. Now don't worry too much if you can't, these are pictures that I've taken, so don't worry too much if you can't read these straight away. The important bits are you know, in bold text on the slide. So, RACI, that most people have come across: responsibility, accountability, consulted and informed. Okay, so that's the RACI that most people know. Okay, when you're going to run a RACI project, so you've got a team of people, this is the process, who's responsible for what, who's accountable for what, who needs to be consulted and who needs to be informed to make sure that the process works really, really, really well. Okay, I'm just going to add, I don't know if anybody's seen kind of this version, and again, don't worry about this little bit of writing that's here, okay, but this is RACI, but this time there's an S in it, so it's kind of really RACI, if you like. So what we've got is responsible, accountable, supportive, consulted and informed. And for me, this extended version of RACI is one of the most important elements of RACI, actually. That supported part. Who is supporting each other? How are you supporting each other? You know, how is the team supporting each other to take responsibility and accountability, and so on? How are you supporting other people that you need to consult or you need to inform, and how can they support you? So I'm going to kind of run the extended version of RACI, albeit in a short period of time for you today. And of course, if anybody wants more information on this, you know, you can, you know, speak to me at the end, and we can have a chat about it with it. So, responsibility, accountability, supportive, consulted, and informed. That's the version of RACI that we're going to look at. Okay. So let's go into each letter and see what we've got. Responsible. Okay. Those who do the work to complete the task. That is the version of RACI's. That's what RACI, if you look at RACI and you type it in and it gives you a load of descriptions, this is the version of it. Okay, so the person that's actually doing the task is the one that's responsible for it. There is at least one role with there are at least one role with a participation type of responsibility, although others can be delegated to assist. So there's one person that is generally responsible. There might be a couple, but when you start to share that responsibility, it's easy to move blame at that point. There will be lots of other people that are assisting on that. We're just having a few more people join, so welcome to the group, everybody. That's responsible. Okay, that's the overall explanation of it. We're going to come into this in more detail in a moment. Accountable. Okay, so the one ultimate answerable for the correct and thorough completion of the deliverable task. In other words, the person that it sits with last. That's the accountability. Okay, so sometimes there's semantics with these words: responsibility, accountability. Yeah, from RACI's point of view, the person responsible is the person doing it. The person accountable is the person that it sits on their head. Okay, and you might argue, yeah, but surely, oh, somebody spotlighted my video. That's very good. Thank you for that. If you spotlighted my video. For those that don't know this very well, you can also scroll. Oh, no, I'm not spotlighted. You can scroll over my name and pin my camera to your desktop to make sure you've got me full screen. Okay? Apologies for not saying that further. I'm used to people that have been on this before. So if you are new, scroll over my name in Manage Participants and click pin. Somebody spotlighted me again, so now I'm unspotlighted. I don't know. Somebody keeps changing the settings on this. But you should be able to see me widescreen. That means you're going to be able to see everything on here. Okay, good. Sorry. Like I say, I'm used to people that are used to coming on these things and used to using Microsoft Teams. So just make sure that I am big on your screen and you've got me pinned. Okay. I was saying there's sometimes some semantics between responsible and accountable. According to RACI, the person responsible is the person doing it. The person accountable is the kind of the person that it kind of stops with. The buck stops with them, if that makes sense. Okay. Accountable, the one who ensures prerequisites of the tasks are met and who delegates the work to the people that are responsible. So it could be, you know, you've got your overarching person that's accountable for everything. They then delegate that and make other people responsible. I'm not quite sure who's messing with the settings, but there's people that somebody keeps spotlighting and unspotlighting. So I don't know who keeps doing that. But if you could just leave it, that'd be great. And then, because it might be changing for other people, I'm not sure. Yeah. An accountable person must sign off the work that's by the responsible providers. So the person that's doing it's responsible has got to get it signed off and get it done by the person that's accountable. Now, all of that is very, very, very wordy, right? What it comes down to is people taking responsibility. Okay, you can call yourself accountable at the top here, but what it comes down to is people taking responsibility. Now, some of you will have seen me do this exercise before. I'm not going to go through it in detail today, but this is an organisational breakdown of the types of attitude we get in an organisation. Okay, so here you've got people that are bought in, good attitude. Here you've got people that are not bought in, okay, bad attitude. Across the top, high self-belief and motivation, and across the bottom, low self-belief and motivation. Now, if you haven't seen this model before, and some of you new people may have not seen this model before, please don't worry about these words, okay? If I was doing this model in full, it would all be explained to you. The point that I'm making is that we have different types of attitude. A player is somebody that comes to work, works hard every day, aims for best, and has a great attitude. That's what an organisational player is. An organisational spectator is somebody that has got a good attitude, but unfortunately, maybe their confidence isn't very high, okay? Their confidence is not high, so they need some help and support with their confidence, okay? However, these two types of attitude, they will generally take responsibility for things. Okay? Whereas we have the bad side of the model over here. You have an organisational corpse. They are people that are disinterested, low energy, low confidence. Okay? We call them organisational corpses. And those people, they will shy away from any type of responsibility whatsoever. Okay? But then you have what we call the organisational terrorists. And I know that's quite a strong word, especially if you haven't heard this model before. But if you look at the definition of a terrorist, it's somebody or something that tries to undermine what you're trying to do. So what a terrorist will do is they will do just enough not to get into trouble. So they will take responsibility, but to a point. Okay? And arguably, it's not really what you need if you're running a RACI project and you need people to be absolutely responsible and accountable for what you need. So the point of this is, if I was doing this model live now, we would go into how do you deal with these people, how do you help them, how do you support, how do you get them into the right box. That's not the point of this model today. The point of this model today is, if you want responsible and accountable, you've got to have these people in play. Okay, players and spectators, ideally players, because these people won't take responsibility at all, and these people will only just do enough, and maybe won't do everything that's needed, belt and braces, go above and beyond, all that type of stuff that's going on. Okay, so like I say, you need people over here if you want responsibility, accountability. Okay, so let's flip to the next slide. Personal responsibility means you have to make some choices. Okay? Now, often people, how many people have you ever that you've known that have said, again, somebody keeps spotlighting and unspotlighting me. I'm not quite sure what's happening today, but somebody keeps doing something. So I apologise if it's flickering on your screen, guys. You should just be able to pin me and have me widescreen on your screen. It's not flickering. Okay, great. It's not flickering. Okay, thanks, Pete. It just must be coming in and out on mine when people are spotlighting. Others spotlighting, doesn't us. Ah, great. Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that. I just didn't want my screen coming in and out all of the time. So thanks very much. So, how many people have you known that... say they've taken responsibility for something but haven't really quite taken responsibility? And remember, when what taking responsibility means is no blame. That the opposite of a blame culture is a responsibility culture. So how many people have said to you in the past, yeah, I'll do it, I'll sort it, yeah, no, yeah, that's on my head. And then they've come back and gone, well, I couldn't do it because... And then there's a blame that comes next. So taking responsibility is actually quite hard to do. Or should I say challenging? Let's say challenging is a better word, isn't it? Challenging is a better word to do it. So when you take responsibility for something, what that really means is that hell or high water, you deliver what you say you're going to do, unless you manage expectation to the person that's accountable weeks prior to the deadline if possible. Okay, so let me just say that again. Taking responsibility, certainly in RACI situation, what that means is hell or high water, you are going to deliver what you say you're going to deliver, unless there is a genuine reason why you can't deliver it and you manage expectation way prior to the delivery date. Turning up on the delivery date saying, well, I tried to do it but I couldn't because, is not taking responsibility. And that's why it's really quite hard. And I've heard every blame trick in the book, and I'm sure most people have on this call. You've heard every blame trick on the book as well. And people have got, well, I couldn't do it because they didn't give me the report on time. I couldn't do it because this happened. I couldn't do it because the weather's bad. Whatever, right? When it comes to it, let's use the example of, well, I couldn't do it because I didn't get the information on time. Okay? That's not taking responsibility. That's blaming another department. So actually, the person that really takes responsibility makes sure that they build a relationship with somebody in that other department to a level of trust to make sure that you get that information on time when you need it so you can deliver your piece of work that you need to deliver on time. They won't turn around going, well, it wasn't my fault, they didn't give me the information on time. Can you see that the blame is opposite to responsibility, and that responsibility is to the person that's accountable? Okay, so by now you might be thinking, do you know what, there's a bit more to this than I actually thought about making somebody responsible. Give them a job description, make them responsible. Doesn't mean they're going to take responsibility. You can tell people what to do and you can give them a list, but whether they take responsibility for it is an individual, it's an internal decision that has to be made. And that is helped by better relationships. So, what it means, if you're going to take responsibility for a job, that let's say that you're not very confident. Let's say you go, yes, okay, I'll get that done, but you don't quite know how you're going to do it, you're not very confident. That means you need to grow your confidence. So you need to grow your self-belief. There are ways of doing that. But if you're going to take responsibility for that task, you have to grow your confidence. Or, let's say it's a particular part of a job you don't particularly like doing very, very much. And let's say it's a mundane, repetitive task that you've got to do. If you take responsibility for it, then you have to get bothered. You have to motivate yourself in order to do it. So there's another choice there. Get confident, get bothered, because you've said you're going to take responsibility for it. Understanding exactly what you're responsible for. Really, really important. Understanding exactly what you're responsible for. What is exactly I am being asked to do. Because I've also seen this happen in the past. Somebody turns up and says, I've done it. And the boss says, the person that's accountable says, that's not quite what I meant. That's not quite what we need. So, rather than sitting there going, well, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me that? That's what I thought. Actually, if you've taken responsibility for it, it means you're going to absolutely get the definition of what that means. Okay? In order to make sure you deliver the right thing. Okay? Let's say you take responsibility for something and you're not quite sure how to do it. Okay? Let's say you do that. Well, you're going to have to put some time in to generate ideas and plan in order to change it, in order to do it. Yeah, you might have to do something you've never done before. But rather than turning up going, well, I haven't done that before, boss, so I don't know what to do, if you've taken responsibility for it, what it means is that you've got to come up with some new ideas and some new ways of doing things. Okay, and that's within us all to be able to do. We can't just go back to the boss and go, well, I didn't know what I was doing. Because that's not taking responsibility, is it? Communication and buy-in. Now this one actually spans quite a lot of the letters of RACI. Okay, inform, consult, support, and responsibility. So, if we take responsibility for something, it is our job to communicate and gain buy-in from whoever we need in the world in order to deliver our part of the RACI, to deliver our job. Okay? And this will come into, when we get to support and involve in a moment, this will come into it. This is probably one of the biggest ones out of all of these things for responsibility that people don't spend enough time doing. They don't spend enough time building relationships, talking to people, communicating with people. Yeah, one of the, if not the biggest reason for things failing in an organisation is miscommunication or lack of communication. By far the biggest. If I was to run an employee engagement survey for you now, and I've run several, probably hundreds now in my career in different organisations, I can write down poor communication before I even get the results back. Because we're not all great at doing this. So we have to take time to make sure we are communicating, we are talking to people, but more importantly, we are gaining their buy-in so they can help us deliver what we are responsible for. Okay? So if you need help from somebody in another department, and what you need help with is number 1 on your list and number 20 on their list, you need to have a working relationship with that person and gain their buy-in to move your priority up their list. Otherwise, you may not be able to deliver what you're responsible for. And remember, the excuse of, well, I didn't get it in time, is not going to fly when you're taking responsibility. So responsibility, like I said, it's quite challenging to do. You are responsible for what action you take when. So the biggest excuse in business for things not being done, in fact, I'm going to ask you guys this. So in the chat box, go to the chat box now. What is the biggest excuse in business for things not being done? What do we think that is? Didn't have enough time. Eddie was straight in there. Thank you, Eddie. It's the biggest excuse in business. I haven't got time. Didn't have enough time. Well, for the people that know me on this call today, they know what I'm going to say next. We all get 86,400 seconds every day. Some people just tend to use it better. Okay? You can't manage time. You can only manage your priorities and your energy levels during the day in order to be able to do that. Okay? So, you choose what actions you take when. Okay? Now you might be sitting here going, well, my boss tells me what to do. Well, yeah, but by proxy, you choose to do the job, so you choose to take the action on the back of it. Okay? So, and I know we spent a good 10 minutes on this, but I think it's really important because everybody gets to kind of support and involve, and that's all important. But the first thing everybody's got to know in RACI is, what does responsibility really mean? And for me, that's what it really means. It means being a player, taking responsibility, making choices to be able to deliver what you have promised, no matter what, unless there is a genuine reason, not an excuse, a genuine reason, and you have managed expectation prior to that being delivered. Because just rocking up on the day going, I haven't done it. And how many, this is a rhetorical question, you don't have to answer it, but how many meetings do you go to and you talk about tasks that should have been done 3 meetings ago? Okay? I know you will all be sitting there going, yeah, that happens to me. And the reason that happened, and I'm sorry to say, but nobody took responsibility for that task. Because if they did, it would be done. Okay? So what it meant was it probably wasn't high on their agenda, which means they didn't take responsibility for it. And they didn't then do all of these things to make sure it was going to happen. So we need to take time out of the equation, because people that take responsibility don't blame time. Okay? It's as simple as that. So, there's 3 choices that we've got in life when we're not very happy. and this is about also taking responsibility. Okay? If you are not very happy, but you have taken responsibility for something, the first choice is, can you change it? Okay, so that's your fight response. Can you change what's making you unhappy? The second choice is, can you exit from it? That's your flight response. Okay? Fight or flight. They're both valid choices if it's making you happy. The third choice is changing yourself. In other words, get your head around it, get your self-talk right, get your behaviours right, take responsibility and go and take some action and achieve peak performance on the back of it. Okay? So remember, the choice is always ours when it comes to responsibility. It has to be taken responsibility. Okay? So, I know I've spent a good 15-20 minutes on responsibility into accountability on that, but it's really so important, and it's the one that missed. Aaron said, Henry Ford set up the 8-hour day. 8 hours for working, 8 hours for home life, 8 hours for sleep. It is down to you how you use those 8 hours for working. Aaron, absolutely fantastic. I have heard that quote before actually, but it was years ago, so thank you for bringing that back up. You have 8 hours in your day for argument's sake, and I know some of you work more than that, I get that, right? But you choose where you spend them, okay? And we don't run out of time. Time just keeps ticking. You choose your priorities, that you do that. And, you know, I know this sounds quite harsh, but unless you own a Ford, in which case you can spend 6 hours in the garage. No comment, Aaron, because there might be lots of people that have Fords on the session, so no comment on that. You can only manage your priorities during the day, and what you will generally find is whatever you have done by the end of the day are the jobs you wanted to do. And I know some of you will be sitting there going, well, no, you know, I came in yesterday and somebody threw an hand grenade into my day and I had to go and deal with the hand grenade. Well, you didn't have to deal with the hand grenade, but the pain of not dealing with the hand grenade was going to be too great. So you chose to deal with the hand grenade. Either way, by the end of the day, you did what you chose to do. There might be another list, yeah? One of the best things that ever happened to me was realising my to-do list was never going to end. Because remember, RACI, normally R-A-C-I, this is RASCI, okay? So, resources which play a supporting role in implementation and supporting each other, okay? And this is the big one, supporting each other down the chain, up the chain, and across the chain as well when it comes to it. And if you're going to support each other, what that means is you need to constantly grow emotional intelligence, okay? You have to constantly grow emotional intelligence. The understanding of how your thinking affects your behaviour and how other people's thinking affects their behaviour. So you've got IQ and EIQ. Okay, now if you're used to these calls, some of you have heard me talk about EIQ before. Can EQ or EIQ, emotional intelligence, that's basically the understanding of how people work. If you need support, or you're going to be supportive, or you need other people's support to help you with the task you've taken responsibility for, then you've got to speak to them and get buy-in, a little bit like the comms and buy-in we said on responsibility, okay? Which means if you know more about how people work, you can get more support quicker. And you can give more support quicker as well. So can emotional intelligence be taught? Very simply, yes. And I'm just going to whip through this because, like I say, some of these slides are for a 3-hour training session. But I wanted to leave them all in because there's a little gem on each one. It can be taught. There was several studies done in schools as well of actually children being enrolled in social and emotional learning. And their academic results also increasing because of that. Okay, their interaction between other people and so on and so on. So emotional intelligence, yes, it can be taught. You can learn it, and to be honest, I don't think you ever stop learning it. There is a phrase in the UK, isn't there? Older and wiser. That phrase is trying to get it. Emotional intelligence, not intelligence. Okay, so as we get a bit older, we learn a bit more about the world, we learn a bit more about people, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So our emotional intelligence grows. However, that doesn't mean everybody that is old is highly emotionally intelligent. That's not the case whatsoever. You have to want to learn how to do it. But the more you learn, the more you connect with people. And the more you can connect with people, the more support that you can get, the more buy-in you can get, and the better result that you can give from people around you. Okay? Okay. So, self-teaching. Strategies to self-teach. You can educate yourself on EIQ. You can model positive behaviour. Okay? If you are a positive type person, it's a no-brainer that people tend to like to be around you. If you have helpful thoughts rather than hindering thoughts, people like to be around you. You can either be infectious in a great way or infectious in not such a great way. So this is about building that social network, your inner circle, and even your outer circle, to be honest, constantly working on who do you need to get buy-in support from? How can you learn more about people, learn about communication? Because that all comes under the S in RACI, okay? Encouraging to think and understand about other people's feelings. Now, there's a word for you. Now, depending on your personality profile, I've just said the word feelings. Some people on the call might be going, is he really going to talk about feelings? Well, for those that know me, I do something called the tier cycle. Thinking, emotions, actions, results. Okay? Thinking, emotions, actions, results. Your thinking drives your emotions, your feelings, your chemicals. Those in turn drive your actions and drive your results on the back of it. So you kind of need to know, if you want support of other people and you want to support other people effectively, then actually understanding how people feel is actually really quite important. We don't really talk about it a lot in the British culture. We're very keep calm and carry on, aren't we? It is getting a little bit better. You know, certainly when I was at school, I wasn't taught about this kind of stuff. My youngest daughters are just having lessons, my 6 and 7-year-old. There's just a few little lessons that are coming in to talk about how the brain works and chemicals and feelings and so on and so on. But they're so important. And what it does is it grows empathy. It grows emotional intelligence. And the more empathy that you can have, the more understanding, the more supportive that you can be. But likewise, if you're supportive, you can also get support back as well on the back of it, okay? Showing more empathy, and dare I say it, being more solution focused than problem focused when it comes to it, okay? There's a big mindset difference between being solution focused and problem focused on the back of it. Thinking drives the emotions. So you woke up this morning, if you woke up this morning and went, oh right, okay, good day, yeah, I've got a couple of sessions with John, that's great, I've got these things that I need to do, let's crack on and have a good day. If that was your self-talk, then you will get a certain chemical release that will help you feel good, give you some energy, and go and attack the day. But if you woke up this morning and went, oh, I'm knackered, if you did that, then your brain goes, okay, knackered, I can do knackered, that's fine, here's some dopamine, no serotonin for you today, here's some other rubbishy chemicals, because you're probably going to feel tired for the rest of the day. This is strictly how it works. If you're used to my sessions, you will know this already. If you are new to these sessions, there's maybe a bit of catching up of how the brain interacts with the emotion that's released to the behaviour that comes out. But it does work in that order: thinking, emotions, actions, results on the back of it. Okay. There are 4 pillars of emotional intelligence. The reason I'm talking to you about emotional intelligence, remember, is because the more you know about it, the more you can show support and get support back. So these are the 4 pillars. The first one is self-awareness. Being aware of your thinking and feeling. Okay? The ability to know yourself, yourself and your own feelings. Okay? Sometimes others, maybe you might have a bit of intuition, but this is self-awareness. Understanding why you're feeling the way you feel. Yeah, why you're feeling this way today. How do you want to be feeling tomorrow? Step number 1, self-awareness. Step number 2, self-management. Emotional self-control. Thinking, emotions, actions, results. Okay? For those that know me, I bang on about self-talk all of the time. I've recommended a book to a number of people. For instance, I know Peter Law's read it. The book is What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. What that does, that book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, what that book does is it helps you with your self-management. It helps you make sure the thinking is generating the right chemical release, the feelings, to give you the right actions and get the right results on the back of it. So step number 1 is being self-aware. Step number 2 is having self-management, so you understand how you work and that you can be supportive to other people, because you'll find if you're supportive to other people are supportive back. Number 3, social awareness. Okay, step number 3, social awareness. In other words, empathy, understanding how other people think and feel. Yeah, and that they might have a different opinion than you. That doesn't make them wrong, it just makes them different. Yeah, because if we understand people more, we can get that supportive bit is so important. You've got people, the person that's accountable is going to support or should be supporting the person responsible. The person responsible should be supporting the person accountable, but also the person responsible needs other people's support to enable them to achieve their goal, because very, very few people are successful on their own, which means you're going to need help off other people. And then, of course, other people within your team are going to need your support as well. So vitally important we understand more about social awareness. And finally, relationship management. Okay? Relationship management. Building and maintaining great relationships. That is vitally important. Okay? What it does is it generates what we call relationship currency. It's almost like you're putting money into an emotional bank account. So I'm going to spend some of my time getting to know you, building a great relationship, helping you when you need some help, and I'm putting some money into the emotional bank account, because sometime in the future I might need to draw on a bit of that. Okay? And I have been questioned in the past, that sounds a bit manipulative. Doing that, doesn't it? I'm going to build a relationship with you and help you in case I need some help. Well, you could argue that fact, but my defense to that is if you do that in a genuine manner, if you genuinely want to get to know people and genuinely like helping people, there's nothing wrong with getting a bit of help when you need it, on the back of it. So, again, this is a course in its whole right, emotional intelligence, but I wanted to share this with you because there's so much more to that S in RASCI than people really think. So in order to make sure you can support and be supported, we have to look at all of these things. Okay, just going to flip past the next slide. Self-awareness comes from pathways in the brain. For the guys that have done sessions with me before, you know that these pathways are called dendrites. They start with an electrochemical a pulse, if you like, that comes from your thought, and then it goes down a pathway connecting to lots of other neurons and creates a pathway in the brain. In other words, self-talk. Self-talk is what kicks it off. Thinking, emotions, action, results. In fact, I've got the little model here. It's normally bigger than this when we do it properly. Your thinking generates your emotions generate your actions, and your actions generate your results. Okay? Social awareness. We talked about that, didn't we? Empathy, growing empathy. Okay? Understanding different emotions and different people. Okay? Now, a number of you have seen this probably 400 times. If you're new to it, you may not have come across this before. This is a very, very brief personality profiling overview. High red people, high yellow, extrovert, high green, high blue, introvert. The point of this is you've got different types of people you're interacting with. So, a high red is somebody very assertive and direct. If they are dealing with somebody that's high green, for instance, a high green is calm and reflective, and a red is fast and direct and quick-paced, there may be a disconnect between those two personalities, okay? So the point of me putting this up today isn't to go through this tool with you. The point is to just be aware. Sometimes we look at other people and we don't know why they're doing what they're doing. It doesn't comprehend. And the more learning you can do about how people work, understanding your personality. For instance, I know there's a few people on the call today that I've run your personality profile. You know what your personality profile is. You know what your team's profiles are. So you're able to then know how to approach different people. Because if a high red tries to get support from a high green, being a high red, they probably won't get it. They're probably going to scare off the high green. Likewise, if a high green wants support off a high red may not give them the time that they need to be able to do that. So, and again, you might have some conflicts diagonally as well with blues and yellows. That's all fine. The point I'm making is the more socially aware you can be, the more effective you're going to be at that support part of RACI going forward. Okay? We all have our own filing cabinet in our head. We all file things as we see them in our lives, okay? However, it comes in and out. The perception comes in and then it comes out in our behaviour. So we file something, we get it when we need it and we bring it back out, which is great, that works for us. However, different people have different files, okay? So the files in my head are going to be different to the files in other people's heads, okay? For instance, I might say something like, in Europe, they drive on the wrong side of the road. When, in actuality, they drive on the other side of the road in the UK. But because it's not right for me, it feels wrong. So I've got a different file in my head. And we all have different files because our perception is unique to us. It's like a fingerprint. Okay, it's unique to us. So because we all have different files, it's majorly important that we do the supportive bit in RACI to understand what everybody's thinking. Because you could take that out and you can still, inform people and so on and so on. But without understanding how different people are thinking different things, it might not all come together. Majorly important, okay? This is just a little circle to think about who is in your inner circle and who is in your outer circle. And actually, what can you do today to go and build better relationships with people that you need to help you be successful? What can you actually go and do today? Pick the phone up, speak to somebody, start a relationship building, maybe do something for somebody. Yeah, help somebody. Yeah, what can you do today to start building a better relationship with people in order to help all of you become more successful? Okay, so that kind of covers all of the S in RACI, and a lot of people don't even think of the S. Like I've said, it's not. Sometimes it wasn't in the original RACI when it comes to it. To be factually correct, the reason that the rest of the world drives on the incorrect side of the road is due to Napoleon. Is that right? So Aaron said the rest of the world drive on the incorrect side. He was left-handed. Right, okay. There you go. I'm thinking that might have been a joke, Pete. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. It was his sword hand. Right, okay. All right, very good. See? Even I've learnt something today. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Brilliant. The point is, they don't drive on the incorrect side, do they? They just drive on the other side. It's not. There's no correct side, is there? We could argue that though, because we know one way, don't we? Yeah, and so on and so on. And that's exactly the point that I'm trying to make with it. Good. So think about the S in RACI. It's the one that often gets missed out. Then we come on to the C, consulted. This also follows on very nicely from the S. Okay, those whose opinions are sought, typically subject, right is right, left is not right, thanks for that. Those whose opinions are sought, typically subject matter experts, and with whom there is a two-way communication. Okay, so just note that point, two-way communication, because I often find being consulted is not two-way. I don't know about you, yeah? But often I found in business that being consulted is somebody just telling you what's going to happen, right? That's really not the meaning of consulted, yeah? Being consulted is a two-way conversation, because if you're consulting somebody, they might have an opinion on it, they might have an idea on it, they might be able to support you, and so on. So it's got to be two-way. Now, in order to do that, and this is exactly the same with the S in RACI, is we have to build relationships. Now, this is my relationship scale. When I say that, I can tell you a complete lie. It's not my relationship scale. Some of you might have seen this before if you're used to coming on these. This is actually a sales level relationship scale. It's from a book called Connective Selling. The author's called John Timperley. Okay? And it's actually a sales level relationship. But the reason why I use it so much is because when I say a sales level relationship, well, you can sell a product, you can sell a service, or you can sell an opinion. So actually, this relationship scale works no matter what. And it especially works if you are consulting somebody for their input or feedback or support on the back of it, okay? And what you've got here is a very simple relationship scale. The first relationship stage is acknowledgement. So if you need help off somebody and you don't know them, then you've got to acknowledge them and they've got to acknowledge you. It's very, very simple. There's got to be an acknowledgement in place, okay? Then hopefully you move to a level of understanding. So you find out a bit more about them, they find out a bit more about you, and you move to a level of understanding each other. Once you've done the understanding to a certain degree, you might move to a level of acceptance. Now that is the point of sale. Okay? So if you want help off somebody, generally you need to get them to a level of acceptance for them to help you. Okay? Before that, you are going to struggle to get any kind of help off them. Okay? So in order to move people to accept, you've got to put a bit of time in. You've got to put a bit of work in. You've got to try and help people get to that point of acceptance. Over time, your relationship might grow to be respect or trust and then bond. Now, a bond level relationship it doesn't always happen in a business, for argument's sake, with work colleagues, but you certainly want to continue to get to the level of trust. And the reason why we want to get to the level of trust is not only is it easier to support and get support from trusted people, not only is it easier to get more from people that you consult when you trust them, but it even goes back to responsibility and accountability, this does. Because if you are accountable for something and you make somebody responsible, you need to trust they're going to go and do that. Yeah? You need to be able to trust them. So realistically, to actually run RACI correctly, you need to make sure that within your team and the support functions coming in to your team and other departments, you are all working on a regular basis to get to a level of trust in your relationships. Because once you have that, RACI starts to just take its own path at that point, okay? So being consulted means a little bit more than being told. It means building relationships, it means moving people through the relationship scale, and ideally getting them to a level of trust. Once you've got that, things start just happening quite seamlessly. And you might get this in your team. Where we struggle sometimes is when into teams have to work together, or departments. Last week, I ran a session on avoiding the silo mentality in businesses. That'll be on your YouTube channel towards the end of this week, okay? And we talked about all the reasons why things are people are siloed and departments are siloed. And when you've got a silo mentality, you don't have trust, okay? And that one thing alone can derail your RACI. It can just derail it. So, as a matter of course, it's worth everybody, as part of their daily job, coming in and trying to build relationships and nurturing relationships and embedding relationships to a level of trust. We want to move people up that scale, okay? PC plus RC equals success, okay? Performance currency, working hard, taking responsibility, plus relationship currency, building relationships, supporting people, having the right relationships with people that you're consulting and them consulting you will equal success. Those two things are needed in play. I know a lot of people that work hard, that struggle to make relationships and it holds them back. I also know a lot of people that just think building relationships is going to get them where they want to go. And ultimately, it might get you a little way, but it won't get you all the way. Because you need both of these things. So you might have come across the saying before, it's not what you know, it's who you know. That is inaccurate, okay? But not entirely. Instead of it's not what you know, it's who you know, it's what you know and who you know. Because you have gone out and spent time to build relationships with those key consultants, with those people that you need support from, in order to take responsibility to make sure that you go to the person accountable and you've done the job, you've ticked it off. PC plus RC equals success. Performance currency plus relationship currency equals success. Okay? How do you influence other people? Again, I run another session on this a few weeks ago about impact and influence. I think it was called something like that. There are 6 tools of influence that you've got. Influence is quite important, again, for the S and for the C. So if you need to consult with somebody, you've got to build a relationship with them, but you might need to influence them. These influencing skills are the 6 weapons of influence. They're from a guy called Robert Cialdini. So if you want to Google these and get some more on them, again, if I was running a 3-hour session, we'd go into them, but I'm conscious of time. So we need to get on to the last letter. So the last letter of RACI is informed. Okay? Being informed. Who do you need to inform? Are you informed? And so on and so on. So, those who are kept up to date on progress, often only on completion of the task or deliverable, and with whom there is just one-way communication. That is the blurb that you get from RACI. I would challenge that a little bit. I think there's always a benefit in being informed regularly of what's happening. Doesn't have to take long. Informing can be one way as well, so you might not be expecting a result, a response back. Email is a great tool for informing people of things. It's not a great tool to have a conversation. And again, for those people that know me on these calls, I think way back at the beginning of lockdown, we talked about ways to communicate during lockdown, and email's not a good one. Okay, it's an absolutely rubbish method of communication. It's a good method to move information, which might mean to inform somebody. But then again, they might read it in a different way than you've wrote it anyway. Okay? However, informing somebody, keeping people up to date is really quite useful, and it does form a really important part of RACI. Okay? Managing people's expectations. Okay? So let's just finish off with this then. Make sure there are clear deliverables. Okay? So when you start the task, to all the way through to when you finish the task. Clear deliverables that your brain can target and aim for. Okay? Be authentic. What I mean by that is don't try and pretend and be something you're not. Yeah, a lot of people take on tasks and then end up with the imposter syndrome, which again is a session that I did about, was that last week? Week before? I did a session called the imposter syndrome. And the imposter syndrome is where you take a job and inside you're thinking, oh God, I don't know if I can do this, or I'm not. This is a bit beyond me. I'm not really that confident on it. That's what the imposter syndrome is. So just be authentic. If you're not very confident, go and build your confidence. All the way back to performance, all the way back to personal responsibility. Okay, don't try and pretend, because people will see through that anyway. Okay, agree regular communications to who you need to form. There needs to be regular information. In the absence of information, humans make it up, and it's hindering, not helpful. So if you're trying to inform somebody of ongoing work and you miss a day where you inform them, or a date, that other person will start making up what that's supposed to mean in their head. So even if you have nothing else to tell them, you are better in the human psyche telling them you have nothing else to tell them than not telling them anything at all. Okay? It works exactly the same in change methodology as well. Okay? So keep them informed. Okay? Build relationships, get to a level of trust, and you're able to get there. Okay, a couple more things. Be transparent, be honest. If you're not honest, people will find you out anyway on the end of it. So, hopefully, I've tried to condense a 3-hour session into one there, guys, so I apologise if it was a bit quick, but I wanted to try and get a few little gems in for you. Just remember, actually following RASCI, it's not quite as easy as just getting a little sheet and going, right, who's responsible, who's accountable, who do we need some support? It takes a little bit more thought, and it takes thought from every individual in the team in order to be able to deliver it effectively across a process. And this is the work that I was doing with the BPE team up in Rotherham after we'd actually done the process mapping of what was happening from customer start to repeat business all the way through. Once we'd done that, we were able to then RACI the process so everybody was clear, and each individual had to go and think about how this would affect. So just remember, RACI with an S. I'm conscious of time. I'm 1 minute over. I hope you enjoyed that. As always, put me some feedback in the chat box before you leave, how you found the session. That would be great. We've got another session in 29 minutes. That session is being empowered and taking responsibility. So that's a nice segue into that session from this presentation today. If you're not on this on the one in half an hour, have a great week, and I will look forward to seeing you next week. Remember, next week has changed round. We've got Getting Away with Winter Blues and Mental Health MOT for everybody that probably needs it as we're now going into a second lockdown. Thanks for your time, guys. I'll see you in 28 minutes. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Bye for now.